Yeah, I think when we ask if sex work is good or bad for society, I think it's important to recognize that there are forms of entertainment that we can consume that aren't necessarily like good, but they don't necessarily do a bad. It's just a matter of whether or not consuming some things for entertainment purposes is like a thing we want to defend in society. I think broadly speaking, we do. We would say that like video games, for instance, aren't necessarily good, but I don't know if we would call them bad as long as they're enjoyed in an appropriate environment with an appropriate level of consumption. So I think as long as we say that people want to buy sex work and people want to sell sex work, and if it can be done so in a way that is safe to both parties, and we can't see any like clear or obvious damage to society, then I think that that transaction ought to be protected. And I think I would say like all other forms of entertainment, we would say it's a good thing in society.
Yeah, so I think sex is a drive everybody has, and there's always going to be a demand for consensual sexual services, and there's always going to be people who are willing to supply it. I think a society that grants its citizens certain civil liberties and freedoms, like the ability, like sexual autonomy and the freedom to control their own sex lives, is better for society.
I think that sex is an amazing and beautiful thing, and it has a design to it. It has a purpose to it, and I think to ignore that design is to live in an unreality that brings harm to oneself and other people. And sex can do two beautiful things. It can create intimacy and bonding and pleasure, which is amazing between two people, and it can also bring life into the world. And I think there's a ton of social data that shows that when you divorce sex from its meaning and you treat it like it's a meaninglessness, like it has no meaning, a hedonistic view of sex leads to a lot of social ills and harm. It's destructive to the people that behave as if it's meaningless, and it's also destructive to people that are also hit by the consequences of that behavior.
Sex is a very important thing. I think nearly everybody agrees that sex is something that's really important. But the problem that I have with sex work, and that's a term actually that I don't consider legitimate. Other people want to use it, that's fine. But I don't think that sex work exists any more than friend work exists. Sex is more than just a biological process or an activity between people. When sex is reduced to hedonistic in its meaning, that sex is an activity that one engages in for pleasure, that does lead to bad things in society.
Sex work is bad for society, but you need to understand why. This debate is not about maximizing freedom. It's not about rule-based ethics. It's about outcomes. The prompt is
sex work bad for society?
So the goal here is human flourishing. For men, sex work is a simulated answer to deprivation. Deprivation of sex, of love. Deprivation of relief from being alone. Deprivation of worth, of feeling desired. It's the expedient path to ease this pain. But that's the problem. It doesn't fix the core issue. A man may feel wanted, but he's not really wanted. He may feel relief, but he's not building a better life. For women, sex work is often more about turning male desire into money. That's the main draw. There can be other motives too, like ego, status, or the feeling of power over male attention. But it's often more direct and economic. And that can work in the short term. A woman can gain money from it. But money alone is insufficient. If the broader goal is health, trust, and stable pair bonding, then sex work can be obstructive. So the core issue for both men and women is the same. Sex work doesn't solve the root problem. It only treats the symptom.
But that kind of argument is like saying, well, gambling addiction isn't really real because the people who are most upset about gambling are only the people who are upset about losing money. The people who don't care about losing money, well, they're not really that psychologically disturbed about gambling a lot. But maybe they should be worried about that, just like people should be worried about what porn is doing to them when it desensitizes their brain and it makes them think that I need more and more hits and more disturbing pornography to get off.
But the difference is that with, and that's why the DSM-5 accepts gambling. They've said multiple times, they've rejected porn multiple times because you can't make a link to how much people
They
view.
include hypersexuality under impulse control
Not
disorder.
in the DSM-5. That's in the World Health Organization. It's a compulsion, but not an addiction.
But is a compulsion a good thing, Jasmine?
Well, is hypersexuality just a compulsion to masturbate, or is it a compulsion to have sexual experiences?
It's
either way is a compulsion that you are at the mercy of, and that often brings a lot of harm
very
and
small
suffering.
percentage.
No, but I don't see the difference there. That if you can be in a situation where I think gambling and porn, they're very similar in their compulsivity. That there are lots of people who can gamble. I gamble. and I didn't lose the house. Lots of people can gamble, but there's a subset when they gamble, it turns their brain on too much and they need to get more and more highs from it. So they gamble more and more and more. And just even seeing the slot machine, it does something to their brain. And they're in a situation where I don't want to be gambling. I feel bad. I don't want to be doing this, but they just can't stop. Similar thing with porn. There's lots of people who watch porn and they don't turn into maniacs or anything like that. But there's a subset where it lights up their brains and they know, I don't want to be doing this. I know it's just killing my marriage. My wife feels awful knowing that I go and look at this stuff. I feel bad, but I can't stop.
Trent is kind of missing the bigger point here. His problem seems to be not with porn itself, but with addiction in general. And addiction is not intrinsic to porn or sex work. These are very high dopamine activities, so it's far easier to get hooked on them. Yeah, but that's not a problem unique to porn or sex work. Beyond that, porn addiction is still only a symptom. The root problem is taking an expedient route to a telic end. That's the deeper issue. Porn is a false flag of accomplishment. That's what men really want. Don't get it twisted. Yes, there is the maintenance side of sexual release, but there's something deeper than that. Men want to be wanted. They want status. They want the feeling that they matter. And those are just the kinds of things female desire signals. That's why porn has the pull it does. It's not just about release. It's not just about pleasure. It's mimicking a deeper form of attainment. That's why paying to win cheapens the whole experience, because the satisfaction is cut off from the real cause. You get the signal without earning the reality behind it. So even if it gives relief in the moment, it can't fully satisfy the deeper aim, because the deeper aim was never just release to begin with. It was accomplishment. It was value. It was being the kind of man who women desire.
Jesse,
Yeah,
we are
know
not
that-
making a case that sex ought to be done religiously or ought to be done in this particular way. We are just saying that the view that prostitution and pornography require, which is that sex is just a hedonistic activity.
Why does it require that?
Because it would be wrong if okay, well, how would you answer the
It
question?
can have many purposes. I think that when I go to a massage parlor, I'm paying, $80 to get a massage.
Right.
That can just be a person giving me a massage. With a partner, having a partner rubbing your back or your neck, that can feel like a lot more romantic. So, just because I go to the massage parlor doesn't mean I devalue the experience with like a partner, no? Or do you think it does? Earlier, you used the phrase, sex work isn't real because sex for hire doesn't make sense. It's like a friend for hire. What is a therapist? Can't you pay a therapist to review your problems with them
But
and then they
once you
give you
stop
feedback?
paying them,
And
they'll
then,
stop being
but
your
here's the
friend.
thing.
and once you stop paying a sex worker, they stop having sex with you. Yeah.
The point Destiny is making here is about maintenance. Sex is a strong motivation mainly in men. There's the need for sexual release. It's tied heavily to the mind, but also to hormones and sensory activation. Men want to have sex consistently. Now, this is one case where sex work is not necessarily acting against flourishing, so long as men treat it instrumentally and not teleologically. That's the key distinction. Sex can be devalued based on how the people involved view it. And so, for most people, sex work is bad because they don't engage with it in a purely instrumental way. They attach deeper meaning to it. They tie it to self-worth, to being wanted, to status, to relief from being alone, to a sense of mattering. And once that happens, sex work starts acting like a false answer to a deeper need. But there are some people who can compartmentalize it. There are some people who really do treat it as maintenance and nothing more. And for people like that who fully understand the distinction, it can be fine.
Any other activity in the world.
Because sex is not like any other activity in the world.
I didn't say it.
Yeah,
wait,
but-
what do you mean it's not like any other activity?
never-
It isn't.
Like-
Sex is something that's unique because it has the ability to create new people. It is designed to bring people together in a close, intimate bond that no other natural activity is created towards. And because it has those propensities, we have moral norms around it. And that in order to have prostitution and pornography, you have to say, well, those moral norms are just what puritanical people come up with. It's not intrinsic to the activity itself.
Sex is unlike any other activity in the world, but that's not evidence of design or divinity. The reason sex is such a powerful motivator in men is because it's a stacked stimulus. It hits multiple systems at once. Sexual release, stress relief, validation, relief from loneliness, proof of masculine adequacy, intimacy. It's massively dopaminergic. And because of that, it can seem like it solves most of men's problems.
So a month ago, Peter Singer, one of the most famous philosophers in the world, shared an article on Twitter from the Journal of Controversial Ideas. And he said, this is really interesting. And it was a defense of bestiality. Okay. And it was an interesting defense of it because I think it goes through many of the common arguments that are made against bestiality and shows why a lot of them don't work.
The problem with most people from Trent's side is that they come at this topic with bad reasoning. For him, bestiality is wrong because of some moral realist view that he can't really prove. I've watched this guy debate for a while, and a lot of his criticism of the other arguments just comes down to getting the ick. Same with Andrew Wilson.
Well, you're a fucking degenerate.
And listen, it's fine to hold that view, to be icked out by something. But the problem is that they lie to themselves when they act like they have some moral authority on why it's wrong. Bestiality is wrong, but not for the reasons they give. It's wrong only in a consequential framework. The real issue is that bestiality doesn't help people flourish. It can actually push people further away from flourishing. So it's a bad idea to do it.
I would rather, if I was, I think sometimes even having sex with animals is better than some of the shit we do to animals, like moving their ovaries around, killing them, literally killing them in order to
Does
get
a dog consent to being trained?
What?
Does a dog consent to being potty trained?
Wait a minute. Are you
Does
saying
your
that you're
four-year-old
saying that sex with animals is not as bad as killing them?
What do you mean?
Did you just say that killing them is worse?
I think killing animals is. It depends, right? It depends what you think.
Say that one more time.
What do you want me to say?
Just the way you said it.
Wait, like what?
Did you say killing animals is worse than
No,
sex
I'm
with
saying
them?
sometimes the
I
experience
think, wait, you
we
can bite the
do-
bullet. Yes, I think probably generally, yeah. Why? What's the next question? How could you possibly flip that? Do you disagree? Do you think that having sex with an animal is worse than killing it?
Yes, it is worse. Because,
For who?
because animals
For
are
who?
non-rational beings that we can eat. There's nothing immoral about that. Sex is for human beings. And
Okay,
I'm
wait,
sorry
so
you guys
think, so you
just
think
can't
that the sex,
see that.
So you think the sex, because we're not religious. So you think
It's
that
not
the
about
sex...
religion.
No, you're not
It's
sane.
about
You're an
nature.
insane person.
And he's got the ick.